And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. The crisis in Syria and the decision of what to do there could end up being the most important moment of President Obama's second term. But how's he handling it? Well, let's see what Frank Luntz's bipartisan focus group thinks about the commander-in-chief.
The president's speech continues to elicit divided opinion across America. When he talked about his role as commander-in-chief, we saw that division right here with our voters. Let's take a look at how they dialed that clip.
This is not a world we should accept. This is what's at stake. And that is why, after careful deliberation, I determined that it is in the national security interests of the United States to respond to the Assad regime's use of chemical weapons through a targeted military strike. The purpose of this strike would be to deter Assad from using chemical weapons, to degrade his regime's ability to use them, and to make clear to the world that we will not tolerate their use. That's my judgment as Commander-in-Chief.
He was very clear about his role as Commander-in-Chief. So tell me, as an average American, how would you, and you voted for him, how would you describe in a word or phrase Barack Obama as Commander-in-Chief?
Right now, weak.
Indecisive.
I'd say he was effective.
Embarrassing.
I'd say average.
Middle of the road to average to better.
He's demonstrated restraint and leadership.
Tempered with caution.
No leadership, vacillating and weak.
I'm going to start with your reaction. Why? That's pretty positive compared to how the rest of the group has responded. Tell me why.
Well, he has demonstrated a lot of restraint over the past couple of years and a lot of leadership. He's engaging Congress, so I think he's done a terrific job under the circumstances.
Your reaction?
Embarrassing.
Why?
It was once a time when America was the leader of the world, and when our president spoke, he had people behind him to follow.
There's the issue. Exercising restraints is fine, except from the start. A year ago, he started talking about a red line that he drew. He hasn't backed away from it, and now that the time has come to act, he's not acting.
But it was clear when he put that red line down, he never put a plan in place to back it up. And when it was crossed, now he's scrambling. That is not a commander-in-chief. That's not a forward strategic thinker.
Go ahead.
One of the problems is that the president governs by committee instead of making decisions.
I think he's being sensitive to the American people. I mean, he was very clear that he wanted to use airstrikes, and I was actually a bit convinced for a while during the speech that that's what we were going to do.
First of all, I want to say it's a little bit ironic that he got the Nobel Peace Prize, and now he's sitting there talking about bombing people. But the second thing is that there's a red line. He says if it's crossed, and it was crossed, what, 2-3 times now, and then he does nothing until the third time, and then he pushes it on Congress. It's embarrassing. It's indecisive.
Restraint and diplomacy do take strength, and it's hard for a lot of our population to recognize that. But more importantly, there have been many times in the history of this country where there's been civil unrest, like civil war between countries, and we've rushed in and not understood all the issues at stake. And so all the things that people are saying he's vacillating is where he was trying to understand the situation. Now he's determined to deal with the human rights issues.
My thing is, and I'm going to address your point, if he was so, if you say he was so strong on a strike, then why didn't he strike? You know, that speech made him look weak.
He told us that Syrians shot off 6 rockets, and then there's evidence that chemical weapons were dispersed. Now, what is to tell us if he strikes, chemical are not going to be dispersed from our strikes?
I think it was really clear that he wanted to garner support.
But when has he ever been clear?
He does not need Congress's permission to go
Just
in
because he
and
tells
strike.
us he's going to be clear doesn't make him clear.
But he was doing. I feel like Congress sort of stomped their feet like
There
little
you go, back
children.
to
Like
Congress again,
we
and
want
you
to
said you
say
don't
in
want to be
this,
political.
and
Everything you say
instead,
is
and so what
political.
he did was he kind of threw them a bone. He didn't have to.
And now
but
he wants to throw them tomahawks.
But he said, he's trying to get. He did say the support of Congress makes it for a more unified front, and
he
I
went
believe
for that support when he attacked Libya
But that's
too.
what I was saying. Now the more liberals are being like war hawks, and the more conservatives are restraining themselves and not wanting to go in.
I don't understand why left of center is now calling for military action, and right of center is saying we're not the world's policemen.
It's very interesting. It's wonderful.
I feel like the drugs I took in college just kicked in.
As a Independent. It's very exciting for me. I love what I'm watching, but I think the element of surprise is over.
As Commander-in-Chief, I think we got what we elected, somebody who's idealistic, that doesn't have leadership capabilities, doesn't have managerial capabilities, and this is what we're seeing. Somebody gets pushed out by the suits behind him.
We can't fault him for going to Congress and asking for support. I think it sets a good stage for his predecessor. It sets a good stage to be able to have Congress and the President work hand in hand. And he's right about that.
Why is this one the one time he wants to walk to Congress? Congress passes. No, let me give you an example.
Tons of different things.
Let me give you an example. Congress turns down Clean Air Act, and what happens? He does it by executive order, and somehow that's the will of the people.
You're absolutely
the will of the people said no, and he went and did it anyway.
Like it or not, we are the world's policemen, and he's the leader of the world's policeman country, the only superpower left, the United States, and he vacillates on everything. He's no leader.
The problem is, if he believes that he has the power to do this without Congress, then he should have done it, and then. Yes. If he believes that Congress does have to, he shouldn't have said anything and then went to Congress.
Wait a minute. You're saying he should have ignored Congress?
If he truly believes, and some people do, that he has the unilateral right to go and bomb some other country without the approval of Congress, then he probably should have done it rather than make the comment first, then going back.
He doesn't want to take the responsibility.
That's leadership. I want a collective opinion. I want to get everybody's feedback into this decision that involves lives that we're going to put on the line for this country.
And our lives. I mean,
the president didn't vacillate with Osama bin Laden. He was criticized roundly for threatening to go after Obama in Pakistan. And he did that, which demonstrated a lot of...
You voted for Obama, and you've been one of the most critical people of him.
I'm critical, and I am disappointed. However, I do see that he's in a tough spot. He's trying to make it work. I mean, obviously, we're not all going to hug it out. But some of these processes and the steps in order to get advisors, people that are going to be on the committee, to voice and share their opinions, share data, and whatever it is.
We're playing word games.
Right. No, I hear you. It is frustrating. I'm the first one to say
we're playing word games right now. The president wants limited airstrikes. What he wants is the permission to do an act of war. We need to stop kidding ourselves. Syria has treaties with other countries, and those are the ones we should actually be thinking about right now.
Now, I want the American people to know that this is actually reflective of the country. 15 of you voted for Barack Obama. Only 11 of you voted for Mitt Romney. But the numbers here, the people who are opposed to it, are very similar to the numbers that we see in the polling data almost every day. And the division that you all reflect in this room are the divisions that we see in America every day.
And plenty more coming up tonight, Frank, and the focus group will be right back. But first... And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. Now, in recent days, the president's handling of the situation in Syria has been described as confused and even embarrassing, leaving many to wonder whether or not America is on the decline internationally. Here to answer that question and much more, Frank Luntz and his bipartisan focus group of voters. Frank.
Polling data is divided. The American people are divided. The question is, where do we go from here? And the best way to look forward is, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Show of hands. Is America going to be more safe or less safe over the next 10 years than it is today? Who thinks America is going to be more safe? Raise your hands. 6 of you. Why are you so optimistic?
Well, I'm so optimistic because of the fact that I know that we are a superpower. I just think we don't manage. Yeah, I really do, but I think we don't manage our power in a manner that will allow us to remain a superpower.
Why are you optimistic?
I think that people, particularly in my demographic and my age range, are becoming more involved. And I'm optimistic because I'm 28. And I think that we are paying more attention and being more informed voters. And the more that we educate ourselves, the better decisions we're making, the better people we're putting in office, the better our national security is going to be.
And I disagree. I think the American people are more together than they've been in a long time. Like I was saying before, the ACLU is working with the Tea Party, and the liberals are not, liberals not want to go to war, conservatives don't want to go to war. A lot of the disparate groups are coming together, and we're more informed, and we're waking up to what's going on with the leadership, and I think we need better leaders on both sides of the aisle.
But I think the country lacks leadership right now. The president's going to leave in 3 years. I think the country's going to turn a corner, and they're going to elect a leader, and I believe that we will be stronger.
He keeps saying that he lacks leadership. a leader reflects on what has happened in the past and analyzes it and tries to make the best decision. And this is exactly what he's done. He's looked at that the country does not want to go into another war. He knows that we've had 2 wars. He knows that the country was taken in one of those wars by false information. And what he's done is he's reflected and saying, okay, I have to balance all these issues.
So we've learned from the past. We learned from the mistakes in the past.
This president,
when he says he leads from behind, and when he wants to keep deferring to the United Nations, that's not leadership.
We have not learned, because as long as conservatives turn a blind eye when their own party is not fiscally conservative, when their president says he is not going to engage in nation building and he does it twice, when he says he's going to be a compassionate conservative and he really did not demonstrate that, then we haven't learned anything, just as the liberals who are jumping on the let's go fight bandwagon because it's their guy suggesting it more than anything, rather than the super strong conviction to do something about the helpless people in Syria.
So where are we going? If we continue down this path, as the President said, that we are a constitutional democracy, when that's not what we were yesterday, according to what I believe, we're in serious trouble if the Congress does not get back their constitutional authority that they have willingly and readily subjected to the executive branch. We're in trouble. And
But Michael, Congress has an 11% job approval rating. Gaddafi had a 15% job approval rating.
Yeah, and if they will start taking back their constitutional authority and start representing the people again, I believe their approval rating will go up.
We do need a strong Congress, because that's how our governmental system was designed. We need the checks and balances. But everyone who talks about this lack of leadership, everyone who stands out front is not a leader, and everyone who leads you over a cliff doesn't necessarily lead you where you want to go. So we live in a very complex world, and I think someone who takes the time to really try to understand the myriad of complex issues that we never know that we're getting into is not somebody to be looked at as not a leader.
She was talking about how, it was a good thing for Obama to take a step back and measure this all. Why didn't he do that in the first place? Why wasn't the first thing that he did diplomatic? If that doesn't work, then he wants to go to war and he takes it to Congress. If Congress won't act, then he acts. He's literally done it completely backwards, claiming he'll strike, then saying, oh wait, I'll go to Congress, then saying, oh wait, let's do diplomacy.
Even though I want to look at the future, I got to ask you, because I've been thinking about it in this whole discussion. When he talked about drawing a clear red line, was that a mistake?
Sure. The mistake was not. He made the mistake, and I think it was acknowledged by his staff. But then he didn't choose to back away from it. He didn't reframe it. He stuck to it, and he actually ramped it up over the ensuing months.
If he hadn't made that statement, we wouldn't even be talking about going into Syria. I honestly believe that he made a mistake. He went off the rails. He said, I draw the red line, when he was asked by the reporter, and he couldn't backtrack from it.
How many of you believe that because he was trying to protect his own credibility, we are in the situation that we are in right now? Half of you, more than half of you, are you saying that he would risk bombing a country to protect his own?
It happens all the time in history.
Yes, because I say yes because he's a politician like most of these politicians. The only reason why Boehner came on board is because he got an invitation from the president, to give approval for the war. That's what this is all about.
Do you understand how crazy, how radical this sounds?
Yes.
The more that they talk about it, the more divisive it becomes, and the more that we learn about what Americans really think about this president, this country, and their future.
And coming up next, it is something that many of us were asked this week. Do you feel safer today than you did 10 years ago? Well, Frank Luntz will pose that question to the group right after the break. Stay with us.